So something I want to get into, I mean, you're always good at, you've got great focus on the micro tasks per day, but you also have a really good understanding of just like the macroscopic landscape of how e-commerce is changing and how to approach the opportunities when they're hot, and kind of knowing when, you know, you got a lot of videos online about drop shipping is dead and such like that. So it's not Amazon FBA anymore. It's not traditional drop shipping. How would you define how people can really get into e-commerce nowadays?
Yeah, so I think like the whole, that whole thing of like drop shipping is dead, like that's a marketing term that people use to get views. I'm not excluded from that. I've definitely used that before. The way that I see it is like drop shipping in terms of doing that as a long-term sustainable business. I think that's dead, and I think has been dead for a long time. When you don't have any control over your supply chain, when you're shipping from China and you just don't have that control, it's going to be very difficult to build a business that actually satisfies its customers. And when your business doesn't satisfy customers, it's not going to be a long-term business. Like most dropshipping, for most people, is a 3 to 6 to 9 month venture where they have something and they make some money in the short term, and then it dries up, and then they got to move on to the next thing. The way that I see it is dropshipping is a really great way for you to validate ideas. Dropshipping from AliExpress or dropshipping with a dropshipping agent. It's a great way to validate your ideas with very low risk and for very low upfront costs. It's a way for you to figure out, okay, like if I have an idea of this product, do I think this will sell? Well, you don't have to think. You can go test it. You can throw up a store on Shopify. You can fulfill via AliExpress. And your customers are certainly not going to be the happiest. But the entire idea is that you validate your idea at a low level of scale so that you can then build the business the correct way and then bring that to a high level of scale. So kind of the way that we do things is we start off, if we have an idea for a new product or a new store that we want to test out and see if it'll work. We'll build out the store. We'll start testing it, fulfilling from AliExpress, just like, typical dropshipping. That's the, for anyone who's not familiar with dropshipping, that's the kind of like typical dropshipping website that you fulfill your orders from. And we'll test the product for a couple days to a week from AliExpress. If the results are good there, then we will transition to using a dropshipping agent. And with that dropshipping agent, we'll scale to, maybe like 10 to 20 orders a day or so. Nothing like too crazy. A dropshipping agent is just someone who essentially is able to buy your products in bulk to some extent up front and then ship your orders out a lot quicker than an AliExpress supplier. So they're going to be able to provide a little bit better service. The orders are going to tend to get a little bit faster, so it's a little bit more sustainable way of doing things. And then once we've been doing that for a couple of weeks to a month, and it's showing no signs of slowing down, it's showing a lot of promise, it's working, it's profitable, then we'll place a bulk order with a factory in China. We'll ship all that inventory over to a 3PL, a third-party logistics or fulfillment center. Those terms are kind of interchangeable. We'll ship a bulk order to the U.S., and then from there, that's kind of like the foundation of starting a real long-term brand that's actually has the potential to have some sort of staying power.
What's the fulfillment center you use in the U.S.?
So we've used a few. I'm not super comfortable giving out the name of the specific fulfillment center that we use right now because it's not like it's not a big operation. It's not like a big like name brand company like ShipBob or I don't know, some of the other ones out there. But we definitely, there's so many of them. We used to use one called I think it was called Yodel, Jodel. Yodel. They're located in Wisconsin. We used to use them for a while. I've talked to some guys at a company called ShipDaddy, which I haven't personally used them, but they were really cool dudes. And there's a lot of them out there. Like you just gotta do some research and find them when you're at that stage, and that's what you're looking for.
Is that usually what people have to go to nowadays? Is finding a smaller supplier because the big ones are maybe not the best rates? Is this on the logistics side usually where you end up?
Yeah, not in terms of factories, but in terms of fulfillment from the U.S. In our experience, a lot of the bigger companies, they do tend to charge a lot higher rates, and there's upsides and downsides to that because they also have capabilities to do more advanced things in terms of like inventory tracking, analytics, and things like that, more so than smaller companies. But we've just found that working with kind of more like boutique fulfillment centers, that's just tended to work out a little bit better for us. So that's what we've been doing.
Okay. Yeah, I think with all my e-commerce endeavors that I've done, and like you, a lot of them, you just pull the plug on them quickly. With your Cole method, I'm good to talk about your Cole method briefly, right? So I don't know where the line gets drawn, because I have all of Nate's courses, but so customer, offer, angle, and logistics. Once you get the 4 of those to match up, then that is where, your essential, like the basis of your, e-commerce store is, right? Getting those 4 things set. And the one that I've had the most trouble with is the L, the logistics. I've found a lot of products that I feel like, the customer got it down, the offer, the angle, got all that situated, but then I order like 8 samples, and recently on one of them, like all 8 samples were like all shit, like none of them worked. And then like the next tier up of products was, $50-$60 a unit, and we only thought we could sell them for like $100. So like a lot of my ideas have been invalidated from the logistics side. Are there websites that you really recommend that people look for or other ways that you cut costs to get around this?
In terms of like ways to kind of reduce product expenses?
Yeah, or I guess I'm mostly looking for sourcing, like where you can source apart from where most people are sourcing from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think your best bet is probably going to be some sort of a sourcing agent in China. So there's companies whose their sole purpose is sourcing product in bulk, either in bulk or there's sourcing agents and there's dropshipping agents. Some of them do both. Some of them do one or the other. It can either be individual units that they ship to your customers directly from China to the U.S., or it can be bulk orders that they ship to the U.S. to a fulfillment center that you then your fulfillment center then ships individually to your customers. So I would say that like an agent is probably going to be your best bet, because if you're searching on Alibaba, you can probably that's another way to do it. You can just source product from Alibaba if you're trying to order in bulk. You can find decent stuff on there. You're probably not going to get the best deals, because that's just kind of like the nature of things. When something's available to everyone, the prices I think tend to be a little bit higher. If you're dropshipping, I think a dropshipping agent is probably the best. Like the one that we always mention, his name is Honest Fulfillment. It's like Fulphil Fulfillment, like his name is spelled. Honest Fulfillment. I think they have a Facebook page or a Facebook group if you're looking for something like that you can contact them with. We've used them in the past and they've been really good. Usually you'll be able to get somewhat cheaper prices than you would on AliExpress, but you also have to be doing a little bit more volume. You can't just be, being like, hey, I have 2 orders I need to fulfill. Like, you have to have like at least a couple orders a day, I think. I'm not really sure what their threshold is. But the way that we do things with sourcing is kind of weird. Like, this isn't what I would recommend for someone that was just getting into it, but at the stage that we're at now, we have a guy on our team full time who's like our sourcing guy, who is Chinese, and he essentially works with all the factories directly. So he's able to find these factories, ones that might not be as like big or common or easily as findable for someone who is just, spoke English. And we just work directly with the factories, and that's kind of how we do things. That's how we've been able to reduce our costs, is by cutting out that sort of middleman with the agent or the sourcing company or anything like that. And then we just go direct to the factories and work with them like that.
So what kind of profit margin are you looking for on that first level of testing when you're just drop shipping it before the agent even comes into play? Are you looking for a product that you can sell for at least 2, 3, 4x the cost you're getting it for?
Yeah, so I'd say our minimum is like 3x. So if we're getting it for $10, we need to be able to sell it for at least 30. And I'd say that's kind of on the low end. The way that we kind of think about it is in terms of like gross margin percentage. So gross margin is just like the cost that you sell it at minus the cost that you got it for divided by the cost that you sold it for. So 30, if it's the same example, 30 minus 10 is 20 divided by 30. That's like a 66.7%, 67% or so gross profit margin if it's a 3x margin. So we look for that. Generally, we're looking for like as close to 70 or 80% as possible, just on the, on the gross margin of the product. The higher the margins are, the easier it's going to be. Like that's always how that works. So we're always trying to find products that we can sell with really high margins. So that's kind of what we're looking for there.
Is there a certain price point of the product that you try to stay between in order to sell on Facebook ads better?
I don't really think of it like in terms of specific price points. The way that it's pretty much worked out for me is that almost all the products that I've sold have ranged between, I would say, like $30 to $80 or so. Haven't really sold a whole lot of anything above or below that. That's not necessarily because it doesn't work or because I would be against it. Like there was something that made sense that was below or above that range, I would absolutely do it. That's just kind of how it's worked out.
It's a pain to have to buy a bulk order of things that are more expensive than that anyways.
It's more risky. It definitely is. And, I've had experience with that, ordering a product that costs $20 in product cost versus $3. It's a lot riskier if you want to get a lot of units. So you got to be more sure that it's going to sell if you're ordering a lot of a more high priced product for sure.
So when you're in that testing phase, that first drop shipping phase, are you just spending a bunch on Facebook ads in order to get the results you want, or are you pursuing any other avenue?
Just Facebook ads, man. Just Facebook ads. The way that we do it is we usually just get the store up. We'll usually spend between $50 to $100 a day on ads when we're first initially testing a product. And we'll do that for 3 days or so to run the initial test. The way that I think of it is like each time that you run a set of ads and then make changes and then run another set of ads, like that's what I consider a round of tests. So for like a round of tests, it'll be about 3 days, around $150 to $200, $250, somewhere in that range of total ad spend. And then we'll see the results. We'll see what things are looking like. And if the results are good, we'll keep on that same route. If they're not good, then we make some really big changes. We try to improve what we're doing to try to get better results.
So these ads, you're running them directly to the Shopify store, right? Or are they going through a funnel?
Now, directly, I mean, the way that we do things is super simple, man. It's directly from a, Facebook ad to a very just kind of like, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but there's nothing special. There's no special softwares. There's no special funnels or anything, like any special pages that we use or anything. It's just like Facebook ad to a Shopify product page, and that's it.
And you try to keep these ads more on the line of like discount based when you're testing?
It depends. It really depends on the specific situation. The way that I kind of look at things is with everything that we're doing, if we're testing something, there's got to be at least one thing about what we're doing that at least I feel like is really strong. So it's kind of like back to those kind of key factors that we were talking about earlier with the Cole method with creative, offer, angle, logistics. We have to have some sort of advantage, something that's really strong that other people don't have, or that is just going to be some sort of reason that this will work or is more likely to work than, what everyone else is doing. So if the offer is that one really strong thing, then it could be, very heavily based around a discount. Or it could be something completely different. It could be, the really strong thing is the angle. It's, or maybe it's the specific market that we're targeting, or it's a combination of those things. It can sometimes be more than one. But we're always trying to find something that is really strong, because without that it's just not going to work. Like everyone who's trying to do e-commerce is just doing very average things. And if you're just doing very average things like everyone else is doing, no one's going to care. No one's going to buy. You have to be doing something outstanding, something unique or different or better. And that's kind of the way that we go about that.
I think I might have misspoke before on the Cole. Is the C creative, did you say?
Yeah, the C is creative, and then offer, angle, and logistics. And
okay, I said customer before. I'm not sure where I got that.
Mainly fit into into like the Cole mantra or whatever is like another really important factor is your market. It's like who you're selling to. We usually call that like a specific hungry market. That can also be another thing where you can find a really strong advantage in is by selling a product that is commonplace, that is not like super crazy or anything, but if you niche it down, you get very super specific in who you're targeting and the way that you're doing your marketing, then that can really speak to that type of person, and that can be the thing that makes them want to buy from you over, all the other random Facebook ads that they see on a daily basis.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, actually, because I remember that was a big part about your course, is just like you have to be great at something, and it's usually the marketing, right? Because a lot of people are getting the same deals as you. They're looking at the same products. They've got the same Shopify store, and maybe your listing's a little bit better, but ultimately you got to get them to click in the first place. You got to get those impressions down, and that's with great creative and angle and everything. And your offers are solid too. I know you really do get the whole package going. What would you say is like, where's the best place for people to start if they are not a good marketer? Do you have like a book that you recommend they go to, or even specific YouTube videos of yours? Where's like a good place where someone is like, I'm bad at sales, but I got a passion project, I just don't know how to sell it?
Yeah. So I would say like the core skill that kind of underpins all of this to me, and this is the skill that I learned that I really believe is like the number one thing that everyone should know if they want to, do some sort of online business, is direct response marketing, which is a specific type of marketing, it's kind of what it sounds like. It's direct response. It's not like, with when you see a commercial on TV for Coke, they're like, there's a polar bear and he's like drinking a Coke and he's feeling good, and it's like, Coke. It's reminding you that it exists, but they're not like being like, hey, Coke is on sale right now. You can go down to this store, go to this address, get this deal. Direct response marketing is you're trying to elicit a response right now, right away. You're trying to show someone an ad and get them to make a purchase right away. If you have that skill, then everything else kind of takes care of itself. So I think that's kind of the number one focus is like, I think my advice to most beginners would be like, just spend 6 months doing nothing but learning the skill of direct response marketing. If you do that, like you're going to have such a strong foundation and you're going to be so much more knowledgeable and so much better at marketing than all these other people who are just, randomly throwing stuff up on Facebook. So in terms of like resources for that, really like just anything by guys like Dan Kennedy, Gary Halbert, John Carlton, Gary Betzavanga. Like these are kind of like old school direct response marketers that a lot of their stuff kind of goes unnoticed, I think, in today's age, because some of them are still alive. A lot of those guys are not alive anymore. But they were doing marketing in an age before the internet. They were writing physical sales letters, mailing them out to thousands of people's homes. And that's how they would make money. And that was a lot harder than it is on the internet. So my thinking is, if you learn from these guys who were actually really, really skilled, I think I'm somewhat skilled at this thing. I've been doing this for a couple of years, but these guys were doing this for decades in a much more difficult medium. Those are really the guys that I think you should learn from. And all of it might not seem like it's like directly applicable to what you might be doing right now because it's online and they're talking about direct mail and it seems very different. But ultimately, the principles are the same. And if you're a beginner, if you don't have that strong foundation, that strong foundational understanding of direct response marketing, all you need to focus on is the principles. And then from there, then you can go and you can figure out how you can apply those principles in specific tactical ways, specific strategical ways. But that would be probably like my number one thing that I would say for beginners is you need to learn the skill of direct response marketing. There's other guys like Ben Settle. That was a huge resource for me. That's where I learned a lot of this stuff. That's how I learned about all these other guys that I just mentioned a second ago. And just like, besides that, just like do a lot of reading. Like do a lot of reading from anything direct response marketing or copywriting related. Like figure out if you don't know what those things are, like research them. Figure out what copywriting is. Copy, WRITING, not like copyright, like the legal term. That's like kind of the main thing. That's really why I believe that I was able to be successful fairly quickly. Is because I learned this foundational skill, which is like essentially the skill of being able to sell things. And if you have that skill, then you can translate that to literally anything. And that's like the thing that I think most people are missing.